You know what hit me harder than my morning espresso this morning? It wasn't the bitter taste of dark roast. It was the bitter taste of watching democracy get waterboarded in broad daylight. And folks, what I'm about to tell you isn't just another political circus act. This is the moment when the ringmaster decided to burn down the tent with all of us still inside. Picture this. You're Senator Mark Kelly. You've literally been to space. You've seen Earth from 250 miles up, no borders visible, just one beautiful, fragile blue marble floating in the darkness. You've risked your life flying combat missions, protecting the very freedom we're talking about right now. And yesterday, the President of the United States essentially put a target on your back and whispered the word execution into the wind. But here's what nobody's telling you about what really happened in that 92-second video that broke the internet. The video wasn't some radical manifesto. It wasn't Kelly plotting revolution from his Senate office. It was six veterans, looking into a camera and saying something so basic, so fundamentally American, that our founding fathers would have considered it common sense. Your oath is to the Constitution, not to a person. That's it. That was the crime that apparently deserves a death sentence in Trump's America. Let me paint you a picture of how unhinged this has become. Trump didn't just disagree with Kelly's message. He didn't just call him wrong or misguided. No, he took to Truth Social, and isn't that name just dripping with irony, and typed words that should make every American's blood run cold. He called Kelly's constitutional reminder seditious behavior and said it was punishable by death. Then, like some medieval king drunk on power, he reposted a message that literally said, hang them, for reminding soldiers about their oath to the Constitution. You want to know what keeps me awake at night? It's not that Trump said it. Honestly, at this point, Trump could declare war on Tuesday and claim it was National Ice Cream Day by Thursday. What terrifies me is what happened next. The Pentagon immediately announced an investigation. They dusted off some obscure regulation that allows them to recall retired officers just to court-martial them. They're literally trying to drag Kelly back into uniform against his will so they can prosecute him under military law. Think about the precedent this sets. Every veteran in America just learned that retirement isn't really retirement. That pension you earned, that's your leash. That honorable discharge, that's just a longer chain. Serve your country with distinction, and apparently you belong to the government for life. But here's where this story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. While Washington politicians are diving under their desks like it's an air raid, something extraordinary is happening in the streets. Veterans from every branch, every war, every generation are standing up. They're posting their own videos, repeating Kelly's exact words. They're saying, I took that oath too, come get me. I've seen something like this before, but not in politics. I've seen it in late-night comedy. It's what happens when a bully picks on the wrong person and suddenly realizes the whole playground is watching. Trump thought he was making an example out of Kelly. Instead, he accidentally reminded America what courage looks like. You know what's really happening here? This isn't just about one senator or one video. This is Trump's beta test. He's testing the guardrails, seeing how far he can push before anyone says stop. He's like a toddler in a grocery store, throwing increasingly dramatic tantrums to see what he can get away with. First, it was classified documents. Then it was phone calls to Georgia. Then it was January 6th. And now it's threatening to execute sitting senators for reading the Constitution out loud. Each time we've said, well, that's unprecedented, but surely he won't go further. Each time we've been wrong. Trump isn't just breaking norms, he's using their shattered pieces as stepping stones to something much darker. The death threat against Kelly isn't an outburst. It's a calculated escalation, designed to move the Overton window so far that next week's authoritarian power grab seems reasonable by comparison. Think about the psychology here. Trump knows exactly what he's doing. He's not some confused old man stumbling into fascism. He's deliberately creating a climate where political violence becomes normalized, where the threat of execution hangs over anyone who dares to question him. It's the dictator's playbook, chapter 1. Make your enemies so afraid that they police themselves. But here's where his plan hit a snag. Mark Kelly isn't some backbench politician looking to keep his head down until retirement. This is a man who strapped himself to a controlled explosion and rode it into the vacuum of space. You think a Twitter tantrum from a failed casino owner is going to rattle him. Kelly's been through scenarios where one wrong move means death in the most literal sense possible. Trump's threats probably feel like a gentle breeze compared to re-entering Earth's atmosphere at 17,000 miles per hour. The administration made a fatal miscalculation. They forgot that Americans have this annoying habit of standing up to tyrants. It's literally our brand. It's what we do. From 1776 to yesterday's Twitter posts, we've never been good at bowing down to kings who demand absolute loyalty. Here's what really gets me about this whole mess. Trump keeps talking about the enemy within. He's convinced that Mark Kelly, a man who's literally seen America from space, who's devoted his entire life to serving this country, is somehow the real threat to democracy. Not the guy threatening to execute senators, not the administration trying to weaponize the military against political opponents. No, it's the astronaut war hero who had the audacity to remind soldiers about their constitutional oath. You know what the real enemy within looks like? It's not Mark Kelly. It's the creeping normalization of the unthinkable. It's the moment we start shrugging our shoulders and saying, well, that's just Trump being Trump when he threatens to kill political rivals. It's the moment we stop being shocked by the shocking. The legal implications of this are absolutely staggering. What they're trying to do to Kelly relies on a constitutional interpretation so twisted it would make a pretzel jealous. They're arguing that because Kelly receives a military pension, he never really became a civilian, that the government owns him forever, that they can strip him of his rights as a senator and drag him before a military tribunal whenever he says something they don't like. Let me break down just how insane this legal theory is. If accepting a military pension means you're still subject to military justice for the rest of your life, then we've just created a two-tiered system of citizenship in America. We'd have regular citizens with full constitutional rights, and then we'd have this permanent underclass of former service members who can be recalled to active duty and court-martialed for exercising their First Amendment rights. It's like some dystopian version of feudalism where military service becomes a lifetime contract of servitude. And here's the really terrifying part. There are 18 million veterans in this country. 18 million. If this precedent stands, Trump isn't just coming for Mark Kelly. He's potentially coming for every single person who ever wore the uniform and dared to speak out against him. Think about that for a second. We're talking about nearly 6% of the entire U.S. population who could lose their constitutional rights simply because they chose to serve their country. The Founding Fathers are probably spinning in their graves so fast they could power the entire eastern seaboard. They specifically wrote the Constitution to prevent exactly this kind of military intimidation of civilian government. They'd lived under King George III, who used soldiers to suppress dissent and intimidate colonial assemblies. The whole point of America was to say never again to that kind of tyranny. But what's even more chilling is the timing. This isn't happening in a vacuum. This is happening while Trump is simultaneously purging military leadership, installing loyalists in key positions, and talking about using the military for domestic law enforcement. He's not just threatening one senator, he's systematically dismantling the barriers between military and civilian authority that have kept us free for 2.5 centuries. I used to think constitutional law was boring. Turns out it's the only thing standing between us and complete chaos. The founders were terrified of military leaders having too much power. That's why they built walls between the military and civilian government. Those walls aren't just suggestions, they're the load-bearing beams of our entire democratic structure. But here's what really pisses me off about this situation. Where are the other senators? Where are Kelly's colleagues? When someone threatens to execute a sitting member of Congress, you'd expect an immediate bipartisan response. You'd expect Republicans and Democrats to stand together and say, absolutely not. This ends here. Instead, crickets. The sound of political courage dying in real time. The silence from Capitol Hill is deafening, but the noise from everywhere else is getting louder. Americans are waking up to something they thought they'd never see. Their own government threatening to kill their elected representatives for doing their jobs, and they're not having it. This isn't about Republican versus Democrat anymore. This is about whether we're going to let fear win, whether we're going to let one man's ego dismantle 250 years of constitutional government, whether we're going to teach our kids that might makes right or that right makes might. Mark Kelly is standing firm, but he's standing almost alone in Washington. That image should terrify us all. When our institutions are too scared to defend themselves, who's left to defend us? The answer is us, you and me. The people watching this unfold from our living rooms and kitchen tables, wondering what happened to the country we thought we knew. We're the last line of defense against the complete collapse of democratic norms. Kelly looked into that camera and reminded us of something we'd started to forget. Soldiers serve the Constitution, not the president. Today, we need to remind ourselves of something equally important. Citizens serve democracy, not dictators. The president wanted to make Kelly an example. Mission accomplished. He's showing us exactly what a patriot looks like when democracy is under attack. The question is, are we paying attention? Because folks, this is the moment. This is when we decide who we really are. And I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to let an astronaut war hero stand alone while the rest of us figure out whether we still believe in America. The choice is ours. The time is now. And honestly, Mark Kelly has already shown us the way. He's proven that courage isn't about the size of your platform or the power of your office. It's about standing up when it matters most, even when you're standing alone.